in general, when it comes to modeling, I try and remind myself that, like, there are so many factors that are completely out of my control that will impact my ability to book a job. That's just the reality of it.
You're listening to Make Up Your Mind. Here we help you figure out your passion, release the mindset blocks keeping you stuck, and take real action. But first, take about 2 seconds to subscribe to the show and leave me a really good review so you can keep getting more episodes. Get ready to finally make up your mind. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday, and welcome back to another episode of Make Up Your Mind. I'm your host, as always, Jahleane, and today we have another special guest. If you've ever wondered what it was like to be a model part-time or venture into that industry, I have someone who can tell you all about it. Sarah Murray is a part-time model and also working full-time in corporate America. And today we're going to talk all about how she's balancing both, and she is just one of the best examples I found online of someone who's basically able to do it all in that sense. She has partnered with brands like Target, Hero Cosmetics, CeraVe, Carol's Daughter, and more. And I think I've even seen videos of her walking into an Ulta and seeing her face in like a Mighty Patch, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, we're going to get all into that. But Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jahleane, for having me on the podcast. I've been looking forward to this for weeks.
Oh my gosh. But like I was saying, I think you are so multifaceted and you're the definition of a girl in New York. She's hustling. She's making her dreams come true with a 9-to-5. But first, I want to know, how did we get here? What does your post-grad life look like? And how were you able to build this amazing career from yourself from the beginning?
I'll be honest, post-grad life was a little sticky for me, in that I was not really focused on where in the US I wanted to work after college, but more focused on what I wanted to do. So I was applying to jobs in Atlanta, potentially even DC, Virginia. I wanted to stay on the East Coast, go back home to New York maybe, and I was just wanted to go where the job applications and where the job interviews and offers landed me, which after several months of looking for job positions, I found a really great opportunity in DC. Long story short, unfortunately, in very sad context, that actually ended up not working out, but I'd already kind of emotionally, mentally committed to moving to DC. So I applied to other opportunities and later was able to land an opportunity supporting Edelman, which is one of the world's largest public relations consulting firms. And that took me officially to DC for about a year. And then afterwards, I kind of moved more and realized, I miss being creative. I like doing internal communications, but I want to do that as well as external. And then I moved on more into working a little like government related, but also like higher education kind of merging, but working in both those industries from a kind of digital comms, creative comms, social impact perspective, which is, kind of how I'm here now.
Oh my God, so cool. So wait, what's your degree in and where did you go to school?
I went to Agnes Scott College in Decatur, Georgia. It's an all-women's college. I miss it every day. And I kind of had an interesting triple major, double minor. I studied business management, sociology, anthropology, and dance, just to throw it in there.
Oh, wow. So you've always been a multi-passionate.
Honestly, I thought, dance classes are going to be expensive as an adult. Let me dance in college right now. I'm already paying for other degrees, and I think that's actually a question that I get a lot in interviews. Is like, dance minor, why? And it's always been a great conversation starter for job interviews. So I'm happy I did the dance minor.
Right. And so remind me, so after you got those degrees and then you landed your first corporate role, what was that role specifically? And was that in the social impact space or comms?
So my first role out of college, that wasn't sadly rescinded, was in the more internal comms, HR, talent acquisition space. So there I was able to do a lot of student-facing work, which kind of allowed me to transition into the position that I had right after. But it was definitely more internal comm space and was more logistical talent acquisition. But then I later sort of pivoted and realized, you know what? No, my internship experience has always really aligned with doing more extra communications, creative work. I interned at like Hearst magazines for a couple of months as well. And that really was like, no, I wanted to do something that aligns with that a bit more. So that kind of is what sent me into more comms, impact related work.
Cool. And so that's what you're still working in today.
Yes. I guess I'm a bit more, I'd say that I'm more like a digital creative consultant because I am like, my skills are consulted out to the federal government and helping with one of their programs. And so my day to day can be anything from, helping with conference proposal and submissions for us to attend, or can be doing website updates and management and SEO improvements, to creating content for social media, doing tracking for social media, to creating graphics, AR filters, video editing, photography at events. It's really anything under that creative realm or is stuff that I do, as well as a little bit of social media here and there.
Cool. So, at what point of your postgrad journey, maybe a couple years in, what point of that were you like, okay, I'm going to look at dabbling into something a little bit more creative to work on the side? And how did full-time, part-time modeling even come from this?
Ooh, that's a great question. As a disclaimer, I started modeling when I was really young, but I
Hmm.
ended up stopping because it was very difficult to balance school with uh, attending castings and modeling and such. And frankly, it was when I decided to move back to New York City that I recognized, there is an industry here in modeling. My parents wanted me to get into acting quite a lot. But acting, that requires such a longer time commitment than just taking a day off of work here and a day off of work there, that I said, you know what, let's try modeling again. Let's dabble into modeling and see what's to come of that. So I started submitting to agencies when I was in DC for a little bit, but there isn't a huge, it's growing, but there isn't a huge modeling acting network or resources in DC. So I really just took the opportunity of moving back home to New York City as the chance for me to 100% sort of dive full force into this being my creative endeavor outside my 9 to 5.
Yeah. And so it sounds like your parents were pretty supportive of it through your whole life, right? That's not something we typically see for a lot of people going into down the corporate route, right?
Yeah, and my dad's first generation as well, and so I guess
Oh,
I'm first
wow.
generation on my dad's side. So I think it's even more untraditional for, I think, like children of immigrants to be encouraged to pursue things creatively. And I think it's because they knew that I had done the traditional route of, I got into a 4-degree college program, I had the job, I had worked in different countries, worked in different cities, that I had that sort of, I built up a traditional corporate resume and had a proven capacity to kind of bounce and do it all. That they were very much gung ho of, we think you're talented in front of the camera. We'd love for you to do more acting, but if modeling's how you're comfortable going into that route, sure, why not try it out?
Yeah. And so you were saying also that you moved back to New York. So when it came to that decision to move to New York, was it specifically because you also knew you wanted to model at that time, or was it specifically for a job that brought you back to New York?
So the company that I was able to work in DC also had an office in New York,
Got it.
and so that reason alone made that transition really easy. But frankly, I moved towards the end of the pandemic, and I thought to myself, if I'm going to go back to New York City, let me go back right now when it's decently affordable.
Yeah.
So that truly was the biggest motivator. But the fact that my corporation allowed me to make that switch because they had a parent office in New York just made things so much easier. And then on top of that, it's like, well, now I can do modeling. This is great.
Yeah.
Or at least
Yeah.
try. I didn't know it was going to turn out to be all of this, but yeah.
Yeah, let's get into the trying piece of that because
Sure.
I feel like moving to New York to become a
Mhm.
model is a dream for so many people. I personally think of it being very Devil Wears Prada-esque in like the fashion world, but I know there are
Mhm.
different types of modeling and such. But what did your transition into modeling look like? So,
Mhm.
how did you start pitching yourself for jobs? What did your first job look like and so on?
Okay. There was a lot of different, I think when people start modeling and approach it freelance in 2025, there are so many avenues that people take at the exact same time.
Hmm.
So you can both sign up for a platform like, for example, Backstage, Casting Networks, New Book, which is an app on that you can have on your cell phone. All these platforms that you can sign up for, pay for out of pocket, and just independently submit yourself. That's one route that you can have access to jobs. But then alternatively, I also submitted myself to agencies. So that required me taking pictures of myself, having a book of whatever I had and submitting to agencies to kind of get myself started. So while you're waiting to hear back from agencies, fingers crossed, hopefully, I was independently submitting myself to jobs. So most people who start kind of do a combination of a little bit of free work to build their portfolio and to make those contacts with designers and other people in the fashion world, while also submitting to agencies, while also submitting themselves to gigs online. And that's how I really started, where I wasn't signed in New York City until, I want to say, 5 or 6 months after I moved back. But I was still able to book my first paid modeling gig ever as an adult with It Cosmetics.
Wow.
just applying online through Backstage. And I will never forget that day. I still have a little sample of the foundation that they sent me to try on my skin at home because it was still COVID-ish. And so they weren't as encouraging to have auditions in person. But my first big gig, one of my biggest to date, I received myself without any help from agencies, just submitting online and being freelance.
Wow. And so do you see that a lot of models actually are able to like still find a lot of jobs without agencies and through pitching themselves often?
Yes. And that's honestly one I think benefits that I can say that came out of the pandemic is that modeling and acting has reverted a lot of the audition process to remote opportunities where there are
Mhm.
casting agencies that operate via Instagram. So if you have an Instagram, you can just submit yourself and really take control over the type of work you want to book and when you work. I think it can be more challenging to negotiate different rates of pay or usage rates. Usually agencies are experts at that. You have less leeway when you're freelance. But I think models and actors, we're really able to take more control of our careers and our timelines of when we book and what we book. Because sometimes if your agent submits you to do a toothpaste commercial, you don't want to do a toothpaste commercial, you want to be in Sephora, sometimes you can't really say no. You have to do a toothpaste commercial. um,
I'm
but I would
calling
say that,
Crest right now.
yeah, exactly. I'm down. Let's do it. Okay, Tom's. I'm so open to it. Parents paid for braces for this purpose. Uh,
Yeah.
but
It's a
yeah,
good
so I think
investment.
yeah, I told them that every day. I'm not even joking. But thanks, parents, for my teeth. I appreciate you. um, but yeah, so I say being having a lot of acting and modeling revert to a more some elements are more remote now has allowed us all to kind of take more control of our careers and sort of in many cases cut out that middleman that is in some ways very helpful and essential. But if you don't want that, you don't need that necessarily to be able to be successful and make some substantial money and connections modeling and acting.
Yeah. So you said something really interesting.
Mhm.
And you said that your Instagram can help position you for the jobs that you want.
Mhm.
And so also, in this day and age for creatives, Instagram and social media, that's your portfolio. That's where your work is.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about curating your profile for the kinds of opportunities you would like and maybe
Mhm.
how that's been able to help you attract certain opportunities?
Yes, I will say I do find it stressful. Sometimes I wish Instagram could just be my Instagram where I could just doom scroll and that's all that it is. But there is definitely a pressure where I kid you not, every time I apply for a casting, they want to know my Instagram handle because like 99% like of the time it never fails. And the part of that I think is because these brands want to know who they're hiring beyond just the pretty curated face that appears in different facets in a model's book. And so that means that on your Instagram, I've definitely tried to focus on creating content that is possibly that can help like build an audience, and that's also sometimes helpful for aspiring models, actors, and UGC creators. But then also shows a bit more of my personality and my interests, and so I'm kind of I'm maybe a bit of a non-traditional model, but really embracing that and letting that show through my social media, as well as having my social media be a place that I can showcase my excitement and pride over the campaigns that I've done and work that I do and behind the scenes of these sets, so that brands can know that I'm not just someone who says I'm a model. I am booked and busy and making those connections. So it also helps, I think, to further validate my experience as a professional in this field.
Yeah. And so would you say that brands are more likely to hire models with an active Instagram portfolio? I say that with quotes if you're
Sure.
listening to
Yeah.
audio, than models that might not.
I think so. Yes. My sister actually, she had an interview with an agency. She's just now getting into modeling herself, and they asked her about her Instagram and said, "We tried to stalk you before the meeting, and we couldn't see anything because your Instagram was private." So Instagram matters a lot because anyone can create a beautiful book of images, whether they pay for it or they're able to work with photographers that are willing to collaborate with them on shoots. But Instagram is where I think they hope to see someone outside of their book, see someone's more authentic personality, and get a sense of who they are. And for example, if you say that you have a skill and a passion for crocheting and ice skating, and they're hiring someone who they want to ice skate around a ring for an Old Navy campaign, they may want to go to your Instagram and think and see, does she actually ice skate in her free time? Are there any images along those lines, for example? So yeah, and sometimes agencies will scout people directly through Instagram. Like you'll see a DM like, "Hey, we found you. We're a modeling agency. Any chance you'd want to meet with us?" I've had a friend who was scouted for a big agency just through posting on Instagram as a regular person.
Oh my gosh. It's funny. I was just going to ask you about inbound opportunities that you might have received. Do you have an inbound opportunity that just landed in your inbox and you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is
I
here
def
right now?
I definitely receive a lot of inbound. I'm trying to think. I've received a lot of inbound like casting, like, hey, like I want you to submit to this. I found you. I think you'd be great for this. Can I submit you, or can you submit things for me? I'm trying to think. Have I been ever like booked directly for something through Instagram? It's possible. I've been modeling for a little while. So everything kind of blurs together because my memory is not the strongest. If I don't write it down, I usually forget it.
And your resume
um,
is long. Let's be for real. Like your resume is
great
long.
for it. But I definitely received like even yesterday actually, there was a random casting that was posted on Instagram, and I said, "Oh, I'll apply for that." But then the director behind that said, "Hey, by the way, I'm casting for this thing. I saw your Instagram. Do you mind applying?" And I said, "Oh, so if I apply, you know my name, you know what you asked for me, and that gives me a little, a little extra,
Like that.
So things like that happen to me often enough, which I
Yeah.
appreciate. Any leg up is fantastic because people receive a lot of applications for all different types of casting. So any kind of edge of either someone already knows you from Instagram because they've already followed you, or because you met them in person at a casting, or you met them in person at another campaign and they remembered you and want to work with you again, they'll say, "Hey, I saw this casting. Can you apply so I can, refer you and say, oh, she's great." It's all helpful.
And so if we're looking at this holistically, like
Hmm.
there's a playbook when it comes to modeling and
Hmm.
positioning yourself in this world. We have Instagram where you can have your portfolio and inbound opportunities. You also have agencies and submitting yourself for opportunities. What
Hmm.
other way would you say would be best for someone to really insert themselves into this world?
Well, yeah, agencies are a big one. Instagram and social media. I mentioned like platforms like Backstage and casting networks where you can completely take reign of not only how often you submit, but what kind of product you're submitting to, from voiceover work to UGC work, where it's like, I don't want to be on a set. I want my set to be my home and just make money from my home, shooting little social commercials for different companies and brands. Like, I have a pretty home. Why not shoot from here? So highly recommend like casting networks, Backstage. I've also heard of Actors Access, which I was on for a little bit, but I don't currently have a portfolio there. Those platforms are really, really helpful to not only be able to apply for opportunities yourself. But again, when we're talking about like those inbound opportunities, being reached out to from casting directors who also have profiles, say, "Hey, I found your information. Any chance you want to submit here?" And I actually booked a really big campaign where I spent a full day in the snow for Black and Decker Craftsman with their new snowblower that's debuting in the winter.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
the casting director reached out to me directly and said, "Hey, I saw your face online. I think you could be a great fit for the campaign." And 2 days later, I was in Connecticut ready to shoot. So those platforms are also
Amazing.
very, very helpful.
And are they flying you across the country? Like, do you travel often for this?
I have never been flown anywhere. I've been Amtraked, which is also
Oh,
okay with me. But I've had friends. I had a friend that was flown to Portugal a couple weeks ago.
wow.
Yep. So and I had a friend that was flown to Ohio for a couple days for a shampoo. So traveling is, I think, when you're able to do it, it's a huge perk of modeling. Because I mean, I've seen like when cruises want to shoot a new campaign for their new upcoming cruise, when different resorts want to promote their resort, yeah, they will fly models out from major cities in the US to Mexico, to Portugal, to Puerto Rico to shoot in those places. So again, you are working 8 to 10 hours a day while you're there, but you're still working in Puerto Rico. You're still working in, I don't know, Costa Rica.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
That sounds like, I don't know, this sounds like a dream. It sounds so
I
fun,
know.
so luxurious.
Waiting
But
for I'm waiting for my dream is to have like Carnival Road Crew Norwegian to hire me for a
oh,
cruise. I've gotten close 3 times now,
ooh, no, it's
and
gonna happen.
it's gonna happen.
It's gonna
So
happen
like,
like
come on,
next
Royal
week.
Caribbean, please,
It's gonna happen next week. I'm manifesting it for you.
please.
So okay, you're talking about all these opportunities you can have
Mhm.
traveling. It can be 8 to 10 hours a week. You have a 9 to 5. So I'm like, how are you balancing this? And what does the flexibility look like? Do you
Mhm.
sleep? Like what does this look like?
Well, I will say that the pandemic really uniquely positioned me into modeling in that I didn't go anywhere for 2 years, 2.5 years, some might say, and I just accrued PTO. that I never use, because why am I taking vacation if I can't go anywhere?
Yeah.
At least that's what I use my vacation for. It's when I'm physically going up and going somewhere. All for taking a day for just yourself to be at home and relax. You decide that the corporate world is not it today, and that's also very valid. Just not how I usually operate. So when I moved to New York, I moved and changed offices. I had this built up PTO bank that allowed me to, okay, I'm going to take a Monday off. And no, I'm not going on vacation. I'm shooting a commercial with Hero Cosmetics. Um, so that's usually how it worked for me, where I've been able to use my PTO days or my sick days. Usually, honestly, my PTO, it's all the same thing, but I've used my vacation days to work my modeling gigs.
Oh, so it's like you're taking time off to work, but you're working on your passion, so it doesn't really feel like work.
No, exactly. It's like I'm working. So yes, I'm working, but I'm working a completely different side of my brain. So
Yeah.
for me, it is a vacation from my 9 to 5, because I'm putting on a different, not putting on, but I get to have a different personality at work. I'm on my feet. I'm networking. I'm getting my makeup done. I'm trying on cool clothes. It's a completely different kind of work. So yes, I'm not taking a break or a vacation to go somewhere, but I'm still getting a vacation in a way from the work that I do at my 9 to 5.
For a lot of people who might be listening, they might not have PTO that's accrued
Mm-hmm.
and built up over time. Maybe you see other models who you're in
Mm-hmm.
community with doing this, but what are some time management tips you have for someone who wants to do part-time modeling, has a demanding 9 to 5, but wants to have these opportunities with Hero Cosmetics, Target, CeraVe, all these opportunities you've been able to have? What does that look like?
I really appreciate that question. I will first offer a very candid disclaimer that for a lot of people who are like, set producers and creative directors, their 9 to 5 is this as well. So they don't frequently shoot big campaigns over the weekends. Now, there are exceptions. Don't get me wrong. I think I applied to I passed something, I think, yesterday, or I have an audition due yesterday that I did submit, I promise, that they said the dates might extend over the weekend. So it is possible. But truthfully, we have to remember that our 9 to 5 are also their 9 to 5. So it's harder to find those bigger campaign opportunities that are shooting on a Sunday, for example. Not impossible, but not as frequent. When it comes to time management, though, I really have to be very diligent and focused with myself, and really type A. That's how I plan out my day. For example, I will allocate every morning after I wake up, do my gratitude journaling, gym. I take the next 30 minutes to 45 minutes, either while I'm eating breakfast or before, to apply to all my job, like all my freelance casting jobs or freelance castings on Backstage, casting networks, et cetera, et cetera. Also check in with my agent, see if I have any auditions due, and then I might either take my lunch break if I'm working from home to submit those auditions, or the second I'm done with work, I'll run upstairs and record auditions, and then I submit them. So and that's my routine every single day, because that way I don't miss any opportunities to submit an audition on time. And I'm also keeping up to date with any new opportunities freelance that are, that I can apply to on my own. And I make sure I do that every single morning. So it's definitely a lot to balance, because audition requests are very spontaneous. And sometimes you have 3 days to submit. Sometimes you have 3 hours to submit.
Whoa.
And it really, yes, and really it requires you to decide sometimes to say, no, this is not possible for me to submit right now, because I have a meeting in 30 minutes that I'm presenting, and I need to focus. And I've had to say no and say, I'm so sorry, I can't get this to you within the hour. And that's okay, because I remember saying, there'll be more opportunities to come, and there always will be.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to know your limits, and know that, no, my 9 to 5 is here and I can't do this physically. But I do find that when I'm able to have my structure of what works best for me, which is castings only in the morning and the auditions in the evening, and then I just repeat from Monday through Friday, that works out for me, so that I really don't ever have to say no to an audition, or I don't feel as though I'm missing out on opportunity to freelance submit myself to a really sounding casting that I saw on Backstage, for example.
So, how many opportunities do you think you're submitting yourself to every week? Because you're saying you're doing it every single morning, and then you have the auditions requests that come in.
Okay, I will say one thing honestly. I'm a bit picky. Because I work the 9 to 5, I don't necessarily look to apply to any gig that's, like, not saying that $200 is chump change, but I'm trying to equate, like, if I'm taking a day of PTO, which is a full day's pay, I want to make sure that I'm making a certain amount of money to make that at least like double, like the worth is compounded of how
Yes.
much I'm earning. So some jobs I see like, oh, you're only paying $300 for the day. I don't think it's worth it for me to stress myself out the day before a big like meeting day in the office to do this job. So I may pass on that. So I am pickier than maybe someone who's freelance entirely and is applying to every single job possible because they need to make some level of income with whatever they can. But even still, I would be surprised if it was in a week. I'd be surprised if it was maybe like less than 25, 30.
Yeah. Wow. So you are constantly putting in the work. And not only that, you're managing communities on TikTok and Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a content creator and a UGC creator.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think
Thank
that,
you.
yeah, of course, these opportunities aren't falling from the sky. You're putting in the work for them. And I think that sometimes people can look at a life like yours and be like, oh, she's just so lucky when you're working your butt off for these things.
Yeah, I feel lucky because I'm grateful, but I don't feel lucky in terms of I'm not exhausted from, spending several a night where I only get 4 hours of sleep because I'm just trying to get these auditions in and doing all the things that I'm trying to accomplish. But yeah, hard work does pay off. I can at least say
Yeah.
that.
Sure does, girl. Sure does. And so you're constantly submitting yourself for these opportunities.
Mhm.
And so you constantly have opportunities that people are saying yes to you. But
Mhm.
in the same time, I know that a lot of models probably get discouraged from receiving a good amount of rejections. Was there an experience that you had in the past where maybe you're going through a dry spell and you weren't getting as many jobs as you wanted to? And how did you overcome that? And potentially, what is your advice for people who might receive a lot of rejections?
Oh, that's a really great question. In general, when it comes to modeling, I try and remind myself that like there are so many factors that are completely out of my control that will impact my ability to book a job. Um, like that's just the reality of it. Um, so as long as I put myself out there, I'm gonna hold on to the pride that I put myself out there and I tried and I got the audition in no matter how tired I was and I was able to make this happen. But the reality is like there are so many things that I can't control that will impact my ability to book a job for weeks on end, for months on end, and it's nothing to do with me. To know that I have a portfolio that proves that I can book and I have booked is kind of what I can, rest my laurels on, to know that no, like things are slow right now, but they picked up in the past. What's to say they won't pick up in the future? I know that modeling is also a really tough industry for anyone who is like wanting to maybe attend their first open call up and coming like this summer. They'll be planning when the weather's nice. You're going to see for yourself how many people in New York City alone want to be models. It's an incredibly competitive industry. I'm not saying not to do it. It just allows me to reframe my perspectives of when I get the chance of I'm picked, I'm the one. I'm celebrating that
Mm-hmm.
to like to the ends of the earth because there were, and I'm not joking, 8,000 other people that applied for this. Like the numbers are astronomical. So when I end up being one of the 3 models that are booked for this lip gloss campaign, that's a high that I try and ride for as long as possible because the competition is fierce. And when you remind yourself that not only is the competition fierce, but there are factors, especially for BIPOC models who are also short and curvy like myself, there are so many factors that I can't control, both physically of how I look as well as who's behind the camera deciding whether or not I'm the hire for this campaign. All I can really focus on is I put myself out there. I did my best, and that alone I'm excited for. And then knowing that there's so many opportunities out there for models and different niches of work and different clients that my time will come again. It's
Yeah.
bound to, because the hard work's being put out there. So the hard work, the karma, it'll all come back.
Yeah. What goes around comes around. And there's no
Mhm.
way that you're putting in your output to not receive back.
It's
No
it's
way.
it's almost like statistically impossible. And
Yeah.
also something to be candid about as well, you can have models that are signed to 4 agencies, and that does not even mean that we are, you know, booked and busy with a major campaign every single week. There are models like that out there. But if you're like me, short, curvy, BIPOC, those may not come as often for us. And that's something that's a position, I just have. And that means that when I do get the chance or I beat the odds, that's even more impressive and even more excited for myself.
You bring up a really good point that I wanted to ask you about is
Sure.
shorts. I'm probably shorter than you. I'm like 5'4", but like what
I'm
shorts?
5'5". Same
Oh,
height.
okay. Should I be a model?
Yes, I was gonna say. I'll take your digitals. Let's submit you. Let's do it. Why not?
You know what? If I have time, I'll do it as like a side. Well, no, I can't even do it as side quest because
I was
hearing
like,
your
what
level of
time?
commitment,
What time do you have?
girl, but also hearing your level of commitment, I don't think I could commit like that. Thank you though.
But
But
honestly, something to ours as well. You don't have to commit this much. Modeling, you can control how much or how little you do. And that's the benefit of not being signed to agencies, that if you're like, this month, you're like, you know what? I don't want to work this month. It's July. I'm traveling. I'm tired. You don't have to submit to anything. But September comes, so you
Mhm.
know what? It's fall. I don't be outside as much. I'm a
Fashion
little
week.
tired. The fashion week, like that, like it's there, it's over, whatever. That can be when you choose to get back into submitting to casting. It's completely up to you. And that's the benefit of having the full-time job, to know that modeling is not your only source of income. So you can go ebb and flow in and out of applying to jobs as much or as little as you want.
Yeah. Okay. A couple questions. That brings up a couple questions I want to ask. What are some of the main challenges
You
that
can
you
say, I mean,
see,
I am.
like just being quote unquote different? I know we're normal in society or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, from modeling standards, a typical model, I think of someone who's like 5'7" and up,
Yep.
right? For women, or you have your hair out,
Mhm.
right? So, what are some of the challenges that come with that, and how do you sort of navigate that?
It is really difficult,
Hmm.
in many aspects, because while I think there are different niches of modeling in terms of, you have your fashion runway models where, yes, people are going to be like 5'8", 5'9", or taller, but you also have commercial and lifestyle modeling, which is, you can kind of almost be any height, but then sometimes I'll still be on set with people who are 6 feet tall who are just modeling earrings. Um, so either way, sometimes there's always this default preference for the traditional model, even though there isn't just one type of modeling. So that's a bit of a personal frustration for me as someone who doesn't fit that norm. But I will say, especially also being short and not being a size 00, that also, I think, hurts me a little bit, because I think when I have been on sets with models who are shorter and are closer to my height, they're also a lot smaller than me. And I'm a size 4, like 4'6" in jeans. I wear an extra small in shirts. I'm by no means larger bodied. I don't feel like I face any level of body discrimination that someone who might be a size 12 would, in the society that thinks a size 12 is large to begin with. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But I do know that on set, when I see people who are at least my height, they don't have my proportions. And I'm a Caribbean, yeah. Like, I have hips, I have a butt, I have thighs. I work out 4 days a week at least. I've been working out since I was 13, 12. My body has stayed exactly the same. So I kind of know that no matter how much I work out, my thighs are here to stay. Um, and that does mean that I've been in situations where I've had designers like comment like to me, but not actually to me, like, oh my God, her hips are huge. And I have a 38, 39-inch hip, and told me, like, oh, those pants don't fit you? And like, well, yeah, because these are straight pants. These leave no room for my butt. There have been situations like that, but it's something that I just have to deal with, and I've been prepared to deal with since I entered this industry, knowing that not only am I short, but I'm also curvy, and I have 4C hair. You can't see it right now because I pulled it back because it was wash day yesterday,
Hmm.
but my hair also can be a bit of a challenge, because I think sometimes when you have a kinkier hair texture, you often see models that have like much shorter afros, especially in high fashion. They're all like gorgeous, all face, and their hair is a lot shorter when they have like a thicker, coarser hair texture. But then when you see people who are like my complexion who have their hair out, it's usually really pretty, big, juicy, like 3A curls. And I have a fro. And sometimes I do wonder, when I look at campaigns that I apply for, I'm like, did I not get this? Or did I not make the final cut because my hair is not of a certain curl pattern?
Hmm.
And again, these are questions and hypotheticals that I've been able to inquire within myself, because I've been in this industry for so long that I just notice patterns of when I don't get hired, who does get hired, and my experience working with designers. But it is challenging. But again, these are things that I can't change about myself, nor would I want to have different hair, because I like the fact that I have a really big afro and all that density. And I know that for the average person, my body is considered very, very, very small. And it's only in this niche industry that there's more pressure for me to be smaller because I don't have the height to benefit from as well. Because I think you can be larger bodied potentially in modeling, like, be a curve model if you're at least 5'9". But
It's like
having
a
curves and
trade-off.
yeah, but if you're 5'5" and have 38, 39, 40-inch hip, someone might see that and go, "Ooh, she's a little larger." It's like, I'm really not.
Yeah.
I just don't have the height to balance it out.
So then in these cases, if someone is considered a little bit, I say quote unquote larger because they're
Hmm.
probably tiny,
Yeah.
so then what there are plus size opportunities. And do you really believe that modeling is moving in the direction where it is more inclusive of more body types, or like of what you're seeing? Are there opportunities? Well, obviously you are outside of the quote unquote norm, like we were saying,
Hmm.
but are there more emerging opportunities for people with different body types and so on to have a seat at this table?
There are. Absolutely. Every day, especially from like certain agencies that I'm aware of. I'm not signed to specifically, but like the Between, for example, We Speak. I follow them more just like because I support and admire the models that they do bring on. And there's all diverse body types, different abilities, and absolutely those people exist. And because we see these agents hiring bodies and people that look more like me, they're hiring them because they think that there'll be opportunities to cast models that look like them. So yes, absolutely, those opportunities are here. I just don't are but do I think they're as balanced as opportunities, or do I think brands overall are as willing or able to even like think critically outside of the norm to think, you know what, this shorter model is just modeling lip gloss. Why does she need to be a size 00 to do that?
Hmm.
Like that takes an extra step. And I think a lot of brands are doing that and they like don't care, which you look like beyond your collarbone down because they're just modeling from here up. But not every brand is there. Not every brand, even if they are a more commercial brand, they still want to have this prestige of higher fashion, which is typically correlated and associated with people who are taller and leaner. But even besides all of that, yes, I'm happy to say that I think the opportunities I have been able to have are a result of that inclusivity in front of the camera that we're seeing more and more of. Um, and I'm very close friends with with three fellow petite models that we're all different proportions and heights, but we're all under 5'7", 5'6", all women of color. And I don't think we would have the opportunities that we've had to model for big brands if it wasn't for brands looking to hire individuals and hire models that are still talented in front of the camera, despite not being 5'9" and above in a size 00.
Right. And so, speaking of these high fashion brands, New York Fashion Week, I can definitely see this being extended or overflowing into Fashion Week. And I remember seeing on your social media, you were at all these Fashion Week castings and you were walking in New York Fashion Week. That's a dream.
I
That's
was,
amazing.
yeah.
What would people be surprised to know about how these kinds of opportunities come together and just being a model in Fashion Week in general?
Oh, okay. I'll do the Fashion Week question first. So if you can remind me about the first part in case I forget.
Okay.
So, first of all, there are two Fashion Weeks technically. One's in September and one's in February. I feel like people don't really know, but there are two. But fun fact, there are two. I think September is kind of like they're equally prestigious because the same organization hosts, but so I think September is more well known. So I have a better chance of being booked for February Fashion Week shows because they're a bit more inclusive of shorter, curvier bodies. And technically, I've never walked an official New York Fashion Week calendar show, but several designers may have their own independent shows in honor or even co-sponsored by New York Fashion Week. But people may not realize that A, there are two fashion weeks technically. And a lot of major cities in the US and abroad have fashion weeks. And then on top of that, sometimes fashion weeks for models and designers actually more feels like fashion 6 months because the castings for fashion week can begin as early as like June, July for September Fashion Week because you'll have several fittings for a single show. I think I've had three fittings one time for one Fashion Week show over the span of
Wow.
like 4 months. It was well worth it. It was like a metal dress. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life, but it takes time. It's a process. And in February, those castings might start in December, like during and before the holidays. So New York Fashion Week is a months long of preparation, and your agent's gonna be like, oh, casting here, oh, casting here. But then you also hear about, oh, this one on Instagram here. So you're flying back and forth, and you can easily spend a whole day. Like it really does feel like those episodes of America's Next Top Model where they're in Europe and they're going on their go-sees with their portfolios.
Yeah.
That truly is what it feels like. Even as someone who's not a fashion week model, I'm still just like, there's more? Gosh dang, I thought I could go home and take a nap now. You're just reprinting your comp card and you're walking, next one. Print card, walk, give your card, and do it all over again multiple times in a day. And then you'll see your friends, you'll see like a horde of people walking in all black all over Manhattan. You're like, oh, you're a model. Oh, you're a model. And you just know. Because everyone's out going to several castings, because every casting's happening at the exact same time, even though castings, the time frame from them can be months in advance of actual September and February. So I guess those are some insights into preparing for New York Fashion Week. And what was the first half of your question?
What would people be surprised to know about how these opportunities come together?
Oh,
Um,
well, yeah, okay.
yeah, but I think you pretty much answered that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
essentially. And also, I think you'd be surprised how beneficial networking can be in modeling, similar to how it is for 9 to 5 jobs as well. I think my most like proud New York Fashion Week moment came from a series of accidental networking that landed me in Getty Images.
Wow.
I met a friend. I arrived to a casting for Fashion Week very early, befriended the person in line in front of me. She happened to want to connect me to a designer who was in New York for just funsies, met with her, loved her, took photos of her on social media, and then she DM'd me a month later saying, hey, I might do my own Fashion Week show. Do you want to be a part of it? And I was like, absolutely yes. And then long story short, it just teetered into like, just kidding, it's going to be for this. And just kidding, Getty Images is going to be there. And then I ended up walking in one of the biggest New York Fashion Week shows in New York City in a beautiful gold dress. And I was in Getty Images. And it was purely a result of accidental networking happenings over the span of 3 months.
Oh
I
my
didn't,
gosh.
I didn't even audition. It just pure networking.
It's like the butterfly effect that's going viral on TikTok right now. It's like, oh, this would have happened if I wasn't right here at this time.
No, that's a perfect. I think, and that's one of the hard things about saying no in modeling. We always
Mhm.
say that we're worried that if we say no to this opportunity, what's not going to come from that one opportunity when we don't just show up and see what happens if I show up, even when we know.
Yeah.
So that's all of modeling. I think is a lot of butterfly affecting. When you just put your effort out one time, you never know what's going to happen and how it's going to benefit you down the line. You never
Yeah.
know. It's great,
Oh my
honestly.
gosh. Truly, truly it is. And so when we're thinking about fashion week versus commercial, I know in some research I've done or things I've heard commercial modeling is very lucrative, more and profitable more than runway. So
Yes.
is at New York Fashion Week, do they make a lot of money during Fashion Week versus the year round? Like, and also if someone, second part of the question, if someone's looking to get into modeling, about how much can they expect to start making per campaign?
Okay, great questions. I'm not traditionally a high fashion runway
Mhm.
model. Have I been paid for shows before? Lucky enough to say yes. Was it oodles of money? No. But I think it is possible that for models that are like, they're signs like the Ford, the Wilhelminas, and they're walking for these really big designers, they're probably getting paid and making something, but it's almost a sad joke that we make that fashion week or high fashion women modeling doesn't pay anything because it
Mhm.
either pays nothing or it pays, from my understanding, relatively little, especially by comparison to, like you said, how lucrative commercial print and lifestyle modeling can be. What was the
Yeah.
second part of your question?
So about like if you have a ballpark of numbers of what a campaign someone could probably expect to make if they book a larger campaign or a medium
Mhm.
scale campaign, what could that look like?
Sure. So there are two ways to answer that question.
Yeah.
So what a model might expect is that the day rate, let's say it's $500, is $500. But then the usage rate, for example, if you're shooting photo and video, and then if photo and video are going to be used for the website, they're also going to be used for social media. They're also going to be used for in-app ads, for example, like on the Ulta app, for example. Those are all, every way that these photos and videos might be distributed is another dollar in your pocket. So like my agent sends me castings that say the day rate's only $400, but then the usage rate is $3,000 because they
Oh,
plan on
wow.
using it globally. They plan on using those images um, on web. It's for a commercial. So sometimes it's like the usage rate is what you really care about. The day rate can really depend, but I can be candid and say, like, I think for the one of the bigger campaigns that I have been booked for, the most I've made in a day is closer to $3,000
Wow.
for
That's
6, 7-ish hours of work.
that's a great side hustle.
Yeah, but keep in mind that you got to subtract the
Right.
agency fee, and if you're signed to a mother agency that placed you with that agency, then that's another 10% out of your pocket. Plus, you got to think about taxes. So while yes, that sounds like whoa, that's a lot of money for only 6 hours of work, 6, 7, 8, depends really on what the production is. But then you have to subtract 10% for taxes, 10% from an agency, 20% for your actual agency, and then you're left with only 60% of that $3,000, for
Yeah.
example. Rough math.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's a really great look at it holistically, but
Yeah.
I think it is such a great entry point and what people can expect, because I think that if you aren't savvy about it, you can really undercharge yourself if you're not thinking about the usage and stuff, right?
Yes. Thank you for saying that, Jahleane, because
Yeah.
that's part of the reasons why I'm like agents can be helpful because they'll help to negotiate for you. And when brands choose, like let's say I'm freelance, but you're signed to We Speak Model Management, right? Like we could be on the set for the exact same project, but I could be paid less because a brand's not is going to know to like if I'm going to an agency, I'm gonna have to charge a certain amount. Like I'm not gonna say, hey, We Speak Management, I only want to pay your model $400 for a day's work. Whereas a freelance model, I kind of have to take what I can get because I don't have
Yeah.
representation to negotiate otherwise. And even if We Speak said, $1,000 isn't enough, they could still hypothetically negotiate more for you because they have that buying power and that negotiating power for you. So that is one reason why I'm like, I don't think you need an agent, but in cases where you want to be lowballed, you want to understand your contract, you want to understand in perpetuity usage, and is $2,000 enough if your images could possibly be used forever? It might not be. You need an agent to review those things for you. So in those cases, that's when agent can be helpful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much to think about, and like just putting your business hat on, being a really
Yeah.
smart businesswoman. And so earlier, we're coming to the end of this interview, but earlier you alluded to the safety of having a full-time job and just being able to
Mm-hmm.
say no to some modeling gigs.
Yes.
For a lot of people, their dream is to be a full-time model. I was curious for you, is that ever going to be something that you're going to try to do?
I don't know. I mean, I have many a friend that is, I guess when I say full-time model, I mean that they would brand themselves as a professional, as a model, but they may also, let's say, they may also work at Starbucks as a barista because modeling work can be infrequent. We're not paid on a regular bi-weekly or weekly schedule. We may not see a paycheck for 3 to 6 months after we do the
Wow.
project. So a lot of models who are still full-time are still probably doing some kind of other side gig to support, not to generalize, but in that most cases. So when I see full time in that capacity, I I don't know because I part of me feels as though I went to earn my bachelor's degree, and I always want to continue learning, and so I think I did all that work because I saw the value and understanding like why I still want to have a 9 to 5, and I want to still invest in those skills and grow my career in those traditional,
Rules, yeah.
yeah, like kind of more traditional path, but also the world is less traditional nowadays, and I know that people are finding more value in doing what brings them the most happiness. I don't know if I'm there yet because
Yeah.
I love a routine. Let me tell you, I
I
love a
can tell.
routine. I love I love a routine. I love knowing that paycheck's gonna be deposited here. I love having coworkers. Having the same people that I see every day. I like that when you're a model. Usually, it's like, oh, it's a treat if the makeup artist that you worked with 4 months ago also was hired on another campaign. Like, oh my god, I saw you 4 months ago. How are you? That doesn't happen that often. So I like the routine of having the same coworkers. I like the routine of starting my day and knowing what that's going to look like. Whereas modeling can be it can be very not type A friendly in that
Yeah.
capacity. So for those reasons, I think I like the fact that modeling is a way for me to express myself creatively. It's allowed me to explore content creation and UGC creation and be able to take a lot of control over like sort of my entrepreneurship and my own finances through creative fields and forms of expression, but do I want that all of a sudden to become 100% what I rely on for sustaining my life? I don't know. I
Yeah.
think at this point, my type A-ness would lean towards maybe not, because I like being able to do both. I think it's a privilege to sort of fill my multi-hyphenate cup with tradition and non-tradition at the exact same time and not having to choose. I think I just don't want to choose. I want to do it all.
Yeah. Girl, you are doing
To
it
be
all.
honest, I guess I'm greedy. I want to do it all.
No, not greedy. You're just making the most of all your talents. Perfect.
Yeah, I just want to do it. I also am also waiting for the day that accidentally both worlds are going to collide somehow. I know it's going to happen at
Yes.
some point. I'm just
Oh my
waiting for
God.
it to happen.
No, when that happens, we'll also have to have like a part two on the podcast or something when that happens and how your modeling career progresses because I'm so interested and invested.
I'd be honored, but yes, because right now it hasn't happened yet, which like maybe is a good thing. But I feel like at some point it's gonna cross paths. Even if only I know about the paths of cross, it's gonna happen at some point.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And so, last question for you.
Sure.
Any advice you would give to someone who's looking to follow your career path? What would you say to them? Or even the you maybe 5 years ago who didn't know what was all coming? I guess the piece of advice would be the same.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Ooh, it's so much pressure. I don't think it's a motto because I believe it's a quote from someone in American history. But for the Sarah 5 years ago that was wondering, should I try this? And to anyone else who's listening and wondering, should I try this? This being any of your creative pursuits that you want to dabble in outside of your 9 to 5, whether that happens to be modeling, acting, UGC creation, and myself 5 years ago, I guess it would sort of be my motto that again I'm sure is a quote is, why do tomorrow what can be done today?
Mm,
Just do it now.
yeah.
Just try it. Just like set 10 minutes aside a day to research agencies that you think you could be a good fit for. Follow me on socials and DM me and we can talk about what I did to get started. Like I'm happy to, be a part of your research process. No one's telling you to pay for backstage now because that's not cheap, right? But just taking small steps to explore whether it is modeling or acting or taking small steps to maybe you just wanted to see if there's a free photography class you can take at a local like your local library or join like a meetup photographers group and just take pictures with your phone and walk around New York City. Just do small things. You don't have to do a big commitment right now, but again, why start tomorrow when you can kind of start exploring today?
Yeah. Why? I love that. Perfect piece of advice.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you were able to join me on the podcast today. Literally, you shared so much. I enjoyed learning from you. What could people follow you and stay up to date with you or DM you if they have questions outside of, this podcast? Where can people reach you?
Yeah. So if anyone is on Instagram or TikTok, you can find me at Empire State of Murray, which is like, the Empire State of Mind, Alicia Keys and Jay-Z. So I'm from Brooklyn. So that, and then my last name, Murray. You can follow me and connect with me on Instagram, TikTok. I also technically have a YouTube channel, but it's very small. Just baby steps to growth, I'm happy to do that. Honestly, reach out to me there. Honestly, just really happy to connect with other aspiring models, especially those who are shorter and curvier and BIPOC, because it's challenging for us out here. We need to, create a network and support each other. And so I'd love to also help support you and answer questions that you might have because I'm learning just as much as you are. So we'll all learn as we go and teach as we go because, I'm only shining if you are too.
Yes, we lift as we climb. I love it.
Yes! Exactly, Jahleane, yes!
I love it. Well, Sarah, thank you once again for coming on the podcast. I enjoyed having you truly. And everyone else, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Make Up Your Mind. I'm going to include all of Sarah's contact information and her social media handles in the show notes or on YouTube in the comment section. Wherever you're listening to this or watching, make sure you're subscribing, follow the show, give us a 5-star review. And yeah, that's it for Make Up Your Mind. I will see you next Wednesday. Bye.